parties and their presidential candidates are jostling to woo the electorate for their votes across the country.
The People's Redemption Party, PRP, is one of such parties. And like others, it's showcased its candidates for the February presidential election. And the party is selling its candidate to the electorate across the country.
The presidential candidate for the People's Redemption Party, PRP, is Kola Abiola, the first child of late MKO Abiola, acclaimed winner of the June 12, 1993 annulled presidential election. Now, the party was created in 1978 by supporters of Malam Aminu Kanu after his withdrawal from the National Party of Nigeria, MP, and then the Second Republic, if you recall that.
That's right, Kyria. Now, the People's Redemption Party is said to be one of Nigeria's longest surviving political parties today. Now, the party stands on 5 fundamental principles towards its vision for a better Nigeria: value and equality of human beings, the power of the people, state control of the economy, genuine federalism, and total liberation from imperialism.
At the unveiling of its party's manifesto, the party promises a political direction that would ensure education for all, promote agriculture and African culture, tradition and values, provide equitable distribution of wealth, and promote national unity and true democracy.
The PRP presidential candidate, Kola Abiola, has pledged to ensure 25% inclusion of women and persons living with disability in governance if elected president. Now, he said this at a rally to flag off his campaign for all elective positions in Kebbi State. That's, of course, in the capital, Birni Kebbi, last Saturday.
He also talked about implementing everything in the party's manifesto to the latter. Of course, the flag bearer promised to create job opportunities for the teeming youths to enable them contribute their quota to the development of their respective areas and the nation at large.
Well, how will the PRP achieve its manifesto if given the mandate? With the current realities, how will the party also get the needed funding to implement the promises it's making already to voters? What is the party's plan in tackling corruption, insecurity, and of course encouraging food security while also dealing with crude oil theft and other crimes in the country? This and more will form part of our conversation in today's episode of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and thank you for tuning in.
And I am Kyrian Umayo. You're welcome to the morning show. On the second part of the program this morning, we'll have a book presentation by a patriotic Nigerian. You get to know all of that. We're reaching you live only on the network service of the NTA, and we're going to be bringing in the segments that will complement today's package. For now, let's get in touch with Farmer Pai, who, of course, has the morning news highlights. Hello, Farmer.
Hello, Karen. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. The second review report of the Federal Republic of Nigeria conducted by Auda NEPAD and the African Peer Review Mechanism has been launched. Also launched is the National Program of Action aimed at ensuring effective implementation of the report towards enhancing good governance and welfare of the nation's citizens. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, restated his administration's resolve towards entrenching democracy and quality leadership in all aspects of governance.
Progress being made in the country as stated by the report, and we will continue to support the African Peer Review Mechanism process and to ensure adequate monitoring and evaluation of the report implementation.
Determined to chart the best way forward regarding the implementation of the cash swap policy of the federal government, President Muhammadu Buhari held a strategic meeting with representatives of the Nigeria's Governors Forum. Now, the federal government has appealed to Nigerians to keep the patience and remain resolute with conviction that it is very mindful of the inconveniences currently being endured by the citizens. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed made the appeal at the 23rd edition of the PMB Scorecard Series in Abuja, which featured the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development.
All Nigerians, that the federal government is mindful of the inconveniences currently being endured by citizens as a result of fuel supply disruption. Unfortunately, some opposition political parties ran to court to obtain an injunction restraining Mr. President and the CBN from extending the February 10 deadline.
Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has directed security agencies in the state to clamp down on cultists and other militant support groups being used to disturb the peace, safety and security of the state. He gave the directive in his broadcast where he addressed the disturbances trailing some political rallies in the state.
I wish to warn that no responsible government will close its eyes to the threat posed by these cultists, fanatical party support groups, and their sponsors to free and fair elections in the state. Consequently, I have directed security agencies to raid any suspected area or premises and clamp down on cultists, militant support groups, and other miscreants being used.
Still on security, the federal government has inaugurated National Census Security and Logistics Committee for the 2023 Population and Housing Census. National Security Advisor Major General Babagana Mongono, retired, who is chairing the committee, assures that the 2023 national headcount will be smooth and peaceful.
This committee will be replicated in all the 36 states of the Federation as well as the Federal Capital Territory.
The Commission attaches great importance to the work of the National Security and Logistics Committee, whose work we believe is very crucial.
To education now, prospective JAMB candidates who allowed others to thumbprint during registration face cancellation, but a second chance has been given to re-register. JAMB Registrar Professor Ishak Oloyede stated this when he met with affected students and some CBT centers.
We will cancel the registration of those people concerned, and we will send messages to them to go back to the very center where they registered. And the CBT center will pay to the board the cost of re-registration of the candidates.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with King.
All right, we thank you for waking up with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, and we now go business. Amid scarcity of currency and rising cost of living, development experts have been tasked to bring their experiences to bear in mitigating effects. Now, let's join Kunle Andeye for more.
Nigeria's socio-economic pressures and the ongoing currency reforms have continued to be major concerns to development experts across the country, with the resolve to address the most critical challenges that will enable the country meet its expectations. Experts are saying it has become imperative to give input in addressing the challenges.
The craze of the moment is sustainability.
Other issues at the table for deliberation include understanding financial disclosure.
Financial disclosure enables a public evaluation of potential conflict of interest, prevent corruption, and increase in public confidence in the financial system.
When you implement in the next few years to come, is something that will not bring the country backwards. Instead, it will keep the country going.
I hope that professionals as we are will encourage each other to file our returns, to pay our taxes.
Capacity building and self-development are said to be the rudiments towards improving the practice. They called for advantage of avenues aimed at sharpening skills for effective service delivery. with business news. I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Thank you very much for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Newspaper review is next.
Let's welcome Chukwudi Waja for today's review. As always, Chukwudi, it's good to have you again.
Thank you, Kirian. Yeah. Good morning, Kingsley.
Right, good to see you, Chukwudi.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. We won't be used to scuttle elections, Emefiele tells Yakubu. INEC says cash for critical services. Buhari meets governors, Central Bank of Nigeria boss and EFCC chair. Tussle over Naira redesign. That's the kicker for the lead headline. Unscrupulous politicians out to sabotage Buhari government, according to the federal government. Assures decisive action to assuage Nigerians' suffering. Protest spreads nationwide. TUC gives 7-day ultimatum. Don't be dogmatic over policy, Tinubu cautions CBN. Court jails 2 ex-NNPC staff for $1.6 billion money laundering. Nigerians must dialogue for peace, according to the Sultan and Bayero. Turkey, how my family and I escaped earthquake, according to a Nigerian survivor. Details of that on page 5. We've impacted 15 million families through NSIP. That's Umar Farouk. Gunmen kill varsity lecturer in front of children in Anambra. The federal government vows to end fuel scarcity, warns subversive elements. Partners divert money meant for health management. That's according to the Primary Healthcare Development Agency.
All right, let's turn to the leadership newspaper for this morning. Above the name flag of the leadership newspaper, let's begin with this. Political elite must adjust to reality of national unity. As Oshimbacho there. It's on page 7. On page 6 of the leadership, we have, I will fully exploit Bauchi Gombe oil find as president. That's Atiku speaking there. Now, after declaring strike, Apeman makes U-turn, resumes operations. Details on page 7. 2023, anti-Tinubu cabal wanted Jonathan as president. Details of that is on page 7. Now, the lead story is on cash crunch. No end in sight as PNB governors CBN keep mum. 4 riders to that story. Federal government fingers opposition parties in Naira swap crisis. CBN won't be used to thwart 2023 poll, says Emefiele. Tinubu appeals for calm over fuel and Naira scarcity. 1 killed in Ogun riots. Now, there are other stories here. Turkey, Syria earthquake, girl 4 are rescued as death toll hits 7,000. On page 6, federal government BOA flag of 116 billion naira Kano Kazare Konglam road construction. That's on page 23. Navy arrests 2 traffickers, rescues 18 victims in Kano. For more on that, you go to page 10 of the leadership newspaper. At this point, we'll bring in Chukwudi for analysis. Chukwudi, what is your concern this morning?
I am going to come in on a rather somber note. That's referring to the earthquake that happened in Turkey and border areas in Syria. It is still something that doesn't quite taste well. It leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth. But let me quickly say that I think Muslim brothers and sisters have a way of capturing God. you know, in his awesomeness. They say, Allahu Akbar, God is great. That was tested yesterday when a baby, still tied to the mom's umbilical cord, was cut off and rescued. The mom died. So the baby was had right there in the rubble. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
There are certain things you can't explain in life.
Yes.
God is great. Yeah. We're sorry, we are not happy at all that over 7,000, we were talking about over 3,000 yesterday, over 7,000 died in that earthquake. May God help the families.
Well, you know. At least from the report that I watched, there were, you know, 2 10-story buildings collapsed, you know, in one particular area. 10-story. I mean, you're talking about families that live in this 10-story building, and you know, it's.
It's so sad. The example cited by Chukwudi is touching, no question about that. Yeah. And it turns out that that baby, who is now just only a couple of days old, is the only survivor in that family.
Yes.
You know, the mom passed, the other members of the family also went. It's difficult to imagine.
It's intriguing.
Because it happened round about after 4 in the morning, when people were still asleep. And so very few had the chance to scramble out of their homes when the first quake happened, and then the aftershocks, and then the second quake, and then the aftershocks. The numbers we are seeing now will most likely climb once they take a tally.
For sure.
Take a tally of that. But to say that on Sunday you had 7,000 persons who were alive, and then by Monday 7,000 persons are gone. You know what that means?
Yeah.
That's
because so many received fatal injuries.
Yes, for sure. And some persons are still trapped under the rubble because you have no way. You are helpless. And then the weather, of course, is inclement at this time.
Very inclement.
Biting cold. So, if you in your room or in your house or in your home, your heater would have been on. But right there, so all of that infrastructure is gone with the earthquake. I was just wondering, because each time I've seen the visuals and the reports from the international news organizations that I've watched for this purpose, I said, couldn't there have been some advisory? Because that part of Turkey is said to be prone to earthquake, unlike the western part of Turkey, where you have Ankara and Istanbul and all those places. But so, couldn't there have been some advisory as to human settlement and the kind of structures you build?
You know, earthquakes give signs. But the point is, you need to have a sophisticated technological approach to that. You know, because one, if a prone area is detected or has been known or noted, even and this particular area has been noted for that, because it's on 2 fault lines, right, that link Syria and Turkey. So there is what they do if you want to, you know, do a to mitigate the earthquake, right? You implant those gadgets. When the earth begins to shake, it doesn't start immediately. That's what we call tremor.
You need seismic data.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And if there's any tremor unnoticed, the gadget will report that immediately, because the moment it happens, it might not be, you might not feel it right on air, but it's happening under. It will detect it, right? So they can get people prepared. That's what have been done if they were aware of the fact that it's going to happen this time around.
I think what they were aware of was that they are prone, they were prone, they are still prone, come to think of it. The Earth's crust at that point, the plates are rather not placed in such a way that it gives you certainty of a continued livelihood. But people will tell you, leaving one's ancestral land is not the easiest thing to do in life.
And you know, we normally say, well, we are lucky in this part of the world, you know, that we don't have earthquakes here. But again, we've been experiencing tremors in this country. Yes, in Kaduna, we had that 2 years ago. We had even in Enugu sometime ago.
Let's pray it never happens.
No, the thing is, you have to get yourself prepared, you know, because one, I was privileged to interview a geologist, you know, so many years ago. He's also a scientist, you know, and he talked about earthquake-prone areas in Nigeria. You know, he mentioned that it's a line. Usually it's a line, a kind of fault line. You know, and he mentioned that stretch of from Kogi area. He mentioned that if down to Abuja, yes, from Kogi down to Kaduna. So when we had that earth tremors, you know, some 2 years ago, I wasn't personally surprised, you know, because I've had an idea of that. So we don't just pray it doesn't graduate, you know, to bigger tremors, which could lead.
Actually, now that you have localized it, I pray that our seismologists, the people in that region of thinking, are on the alert. Come to think of it, the hills you see all around us in this part of the country and into the north, Kogi area too, they've not always been like that. It's movement of the earth that raised the hills to the point they are. So that means that at some point in the past, these movements also happened here. We really hope that...
we saw what happened in Abuja. This was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not quite sure, and I think we had a number of conversations around that. It started from the Mpape area. They said they had to stop rock blasting and excavation activities in that location. I was at home that day and I felt it.
You felt it?
Yes.
I felt it too.
I felt it. It was like a thunderbolt. It was like a thunderbolt. And I was wondering, I said, what could this be?
Yes,
what could this be? It was later on that it was explained. And then in the 1980s, there were tremors around the Djibouti and Shagamu.
Yes.
Yes, in the 80s. So we keep saying, as the saying goes, we are lucky in this part of the world. What we just need to do is to get ourselves prepared for emergencies. You can see the supplies that are going into Syria and into Turkey from international aid agencies, from countries that are prepared. You have to have your stock so that when disaster strikes, it is not then you start running around to be looking for contractors who to award contract to. You say, oh, well, Bureau of Public Procurement has not approved, the other one hasn't approved, by which time people would have died and then discontent would have built up.
Exactly. Now, is that no that, I mean...
There's, after declaring strike, IPMAN makes U-turn, resumes operations. That's actually one piece of news we don't want to listen to if really they had, you know, continued in their resolution to go on a strike. I call it good talk because I'm asking how could we, in the midst of jubilating over their agreement with the NNPCL just a few days ago for better and steadier supply of fuel, you know, turn around to mention the possibility of a strike? That's the question I was asking. I am asking, rather. That would have amounted to... Kingsley, I have something for you there.
Yeah,
I said that would have amounted to a non sequitur. I want to tease him this morning, which Kingsley Sadolo and his legal clan would refer to as conclusion that doesn't quite follow from logic suggested by its premise. You know? You say you had an agreement, then the next day we are hearing that you want to go on a strike. You know?
When I read that report yesterday, I was taken aback. I thought it was just pure sensationalism.
Okay.
Because when you say IPMAN, you give the impression that it is the national body of IPMAN. Last week we had the chairman of IPMAN, the president, he was here, along with other guests, NNPC CEO, excuse me, NNPC CEO, as well as the authority CEO. And they discussed and said that, look, they are agreed on tackling, excuse me.
Sorry, yeah.
No, Claire, sorry, I just cleared it. Yeah. Sorry, I'm okay. It's a bit chilly out in here. So they said they had already agreed on what to do. Following a meeting attended also by the Chief of Defense Staff. When you read that report, the report was talking about IPMAN, a chapter of IPMAN in Borno State. The impression is created that it was a national body. It was IPMAN in the Borno State. They could have a localized issue, but sometimes when we give vent to, they say, seal off filling stations, don't sell fuel, then you create panic buying amongst the motoring public.
We unwittingly overblow it.
Precisely.
That's the point you're making.
Well,
that's very
whether
important.
Whether it's overblown or not, you know, my concern is that IPMAN, whether in Maiduguri or elsewhere, I wouldn't like to hear anything concerning strike, you know, because one, what they're doing in the present situation that we have scarcity of fuel is unfathomable. How can a group of people who are independent marketers will now team up in certain parts of the country and be selling fuel at any cost they like? In the southeast, if you get fuel at 470, 500, 450. You know, sometime last week, some youths rioted, you know, in Enugu because of the scarcity of fuel, and they all locked up their stations, right? Only to open in the night from 8 p.m. They started opening there and were selling at 470 per liter. Now, is IPMAN not there? If they believe that they're going to lose if they don't charge higher, why not say, okay, for a reasonable charge, 250 or something, not 470, 500, you know, per liter. It's very painful.
It is.
All right, Chukudi and Kieran, that's where we're going to call it time on the newspaper review segment. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of February. You have 2 days left to deposit your outgoing Naira notes. The CBN has said no extension. And with all the reports that we've been reading have been toing and froing, there's no indication that the deadline will be extended. So anyone who has not deposited his or her money, that's to say 500, 200, and 1,000 notes, well, you have yourself, of course, to look at after the 10th of February. Again, I want to repeat, today is the 8th of February.
Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, to begin our conversation this morning, which of course I focus that we are going to have on People's Redemption Party, let's get this background report put together by Garba Natala.
Inauguration of the Presidential Campaign Council and unveiling of the manifesto, all with a mandate to ensure victory come 2023 general elections. Party members, states chairmen, legislative and governorship candidates across the 36 states of the Federation witnessed the event. The presidential candidate Kola Abiola says salvaging as well as moving the country to greater heights remains his priority.
We have a field of 711 candidates nationwide, and that in itself gives us the kind of representation we should require to run a very successful campaign. We have also put in place a very robust back end that is going to make a big difference in this election.
The PRP Presidential Campaign Council mandating all National Executive Committee members to act on various capacities at national and regional level, with the National Organizing Secretary, Sule Muhammad, as the Director General of the Campaign Council.
Have people who have the passion, who have the commitment, and who have the selflessness to get elected so that they can work for the Nigerian people. And that's what Nigeria requires.
Thank you very much, Garba Natala, for that background report. With us in the studios now to discuss issues around the presidential campaign of the PRP, would like to welcome the candidate himself, Kolawole Abiola. We're glad to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for having us. Good morning, Nigeria.
Also here with us in the studios is the vice presidential candidate of the PRP, Haruna Zego. We're glad to have you on the program this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
All right, and we have Barrister Juliet Oba, National Legal Advisor of the PRP. Madam, you're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, I want to begin with the candidate of the PRP. That's Kolawole Abiola, the son of the late Chief MKO Abiola, who we all remember 30 years ago, participated in the historic June 12 elections, and of course, it ended in a fiasco with the impact on our nation's history. But I want to back up a bit, Mr. Kolawole Abiola, and ask you to probably resolve this for the benefit of our viewers who are watching at home. There's certain incongruity. The People's Redemption Party, as it's always been known, more especially during the Second Republic, it's a party for the people. Some would say the Talakawa, the proletariat. And here you are, one of the bourgeoisie, seeking to run on the platform of the proletariat. How do you reconcile that?
I think there's a stereotype here. Once again, thank you. I think, look, the principles of the People's Redemption Party, the ideology of the party is not any different from the principles of MKO or Kola Abiola. In many ways, we've always been about the people. We've always been there to help, to give a helping hand as best as we can. And you must understand one thing. The late Mana Aminu Kano came from an aristocratic background, but he had the state of mind to help his fellow Nigerians. He had the state of mind to help and create a level playing field. That's not any different from what we've done over the past years. One of my big political mentors, the late General Shehu Yaradua, comes from an elite blue blood circle. He's always been progressive. He did UPN, he did SDP. He never was in the Conservative Party, all because he believed he could make a difference in the life of Nigerians. We have done that in practice. We have done that in everything we've done to date, be it business, be it philanthropy or otherwise, and we keep doing it till tomorrow. So it's not out of line for me to be where I am today. It just speaks to what I am and who I am and the kind of ideologies I have and believe in. And that is why I'm here. But also, more importantly, we've always been here to serve the people. I've always given the bit I can anywhere I walked in this country, nationwide. And I think I understand the needs of the people. Let me do that at a scale that benefits the majority, not just a little that I have access to. And the only way I can do that is to go to a party that believes in the strength of the people, appreciates that democracy is about the people, and hopefully I'll make that difference. And that's why I'm
here. Okay, just as my colleague did say earlier, we believe that the PRP, based on its philosophy, is a party for the proletariats, and here we are. We have the bourgeoisies, and all right. But again, no party can run successfully anywhere globally, if you don't have some kind of funding, to do that, because there are activities that are synonymous with the political party and what have you. Now, looking at the current political terrain, in the country, considering we have what we refer to today as major parties and all that. What are the chances of your party? And let us have an idea of what your campaign has been, since you began some weeks ago.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out how to take the first part of the last part. But anyway, we have a different blueprint, and that blueprint is about the people. We're a grassroots party. We're a party of 50 years. And, well, if you count the NAPU days, maybe it's almost 70-year party. We've stuck to our own ideals. We believe in grassroots politics. It's not so much a money political game, but more the grassroots. And what we have done, Haro and I, over the past few months, is to go to that level. We have a different playbook. That means that we move around, we campaign for our candidates, we move around on a territorial basis in every state we go to. We do that because we want to reach out to the people at the bottom. We don't have governors, we don't have senators, so we don't believe that we can just go in there for 1 hour, make noise on the stage, rent a crowd, and then we think we have done it. So we go all the way down. We go to the senatorial districts. We have town hall meetings. We speak to local radio. We speak to local TV, and that has helped us build a support base and at least identify with our support base. But what we start doing from this week is the rallies. We started in the Southwest on Thursday, and then we will now kick off the different zones, and then we will spread to the states accordingly. We believe that's, like our chairman, Fala Bello, will say, we have a skill in managing our poverty in many ways. We get efficiency, and we get the more buck for the little money we spend. And the only way we can do that is how we do it. Now, it means a lot more work for him and myself, But I think we're capable to do that, and we're strong enough to see that through. We don't have to have surrogates in every state to deliver our tickets. We'll go there, like they say, we pound the pavements ourselves, we shake the hands ourselves, we meet and discuss with people, stakeholders, we get the question, we have a question and answer session. We're quite democratic in what we do, and we want to run our campaigns in a very democratic fashion also.
All right, thank you very much. Let's bring in your running mate, Haruna Zego. This is a question that keeps popping up each time we're having a conversation of this nature. Some would label it as media categorization. They will say, oh, some candidates are front runners, which means that the others are, of course, making up the numbers. Do you get discouraged by this kind of categorization?
No, why should I? It's only natural in everything you do. There are some who seem to be front runners and some who seem to be just filling the space. But it depends on what you know you're doing. If you know where you come from, and I come from a party that has roots. I have come from a party that, as I said, is about 50 years old, let's say 44 years plus, from 1978 till today. I have a party that has people who believe in its ideology, have never changed. You talk about the party of the Talakawas. There are still Talakawas in this country. What Aminu Kano, of blessed memory, set out to do in this country, he has achieved, because he has brought the Talakawa to the table of governance. He brought them after, it was after him that a common man in the northern part of Nigeria especially could vie for an elective office. It was because of him that girl-child education has become a thing in the northern part of this country today. And that is something that has lived in the hearts of people. It is because of him that people from my southern part of Kaduna today are free and do not take taxes to Zaria, because of what he stood for and what he did. So do people forget that? No, they do not. Things come around and people, oh, we don't have our party on the ballot. But I tell you, even when we never had, we had people who still go. And when they see anything like PRP, even when there's no candidate, they don't know, they still thumbprint PRP. So no, we are not backbenchers, or we're not bench warmers.
And you're not making up the numbers.
We're not, definitely not.
See, apart from ideology, there being a party that's been there for a very long time, many could question your capacity, to galvanize, your capacity to win elections at different categories. Maybe councillorship, House of Assembly, National Assembly, and whatever. So all these years, we've not had PRP persons, being elected. So what happened, and what do you intend to do differently now that will make you to begin to win elections?
Okay, you have to go back to history and talk about a party from when it started in '78, and then it won elections, 2 major states in this country, Kaduna and Kano states. And what happened after that? Yes, in Kaduna state, the governor was impeached, and subsequently there were some problems within the party and breakaways and stuff like that. But from that time on, money politics came into being, and severally the party they tried to proscribe the party, and this is a party that stands with a common man. So if you realize, this party is a party that people sponsored themselves to meetings, to everything they did. Nobody gave you money used from your pocket. People trekked, people rode their bicycles to meeting points. They sponsored themselves. So this was not a party that was accepted by the elite class of society. So it was more of a threat. And they struggled. And it was under the leadership of Malam Balaribe Musa of blessed memory. But about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he stepped aside. and brought in a new leadership structure, which was Malam Fadel Bello, the national chairman of the party, which came in and said, oh, there's accusation that these are people who come from a different class, these are capitalists. But I dare say that no socialist movement wasn't sponsored by a capitalist. so when you talk about that, but you see, there's a new blood, new structure in place. It's a new party, but built on the ideology of equality and value of the human being.
Okay,
and power of the people.
Yes.
We've moved from being seen as a regional Muslim party to a truly national party. I am Abdul Latif Kola Abiola from the Southwest, Muslim. Harold Zigo is Southern Kaduna, Christian. We're a national party. We have 719 candidates in this election. We have 22 governors in this election. We have 44 senatorial candidates in this election, all over Nigeria. In every state we have a candidate. So I think the stereotype is wrong. Where we have presence in the 733, except for Bakassi that has gone, local governments in this country, we have presence. So we're truly a national party in that sense that gives us the spread required to make a big impact in this next election. And we're a few days away, you will see the difference. We're so sure of ourselves.
So in addition to that, currently in Just Not Basse federal constituency, we have a representative in the House.
Yes,
and in Bauchi too, I can't remember the constituency, we also have a member in the House.
Yes. The House,
so,
is it House of Reps or
House
House of Assembly?
House of Assembly.
Okay.
House of Reps.
House of Reps?
Yes, House of Reps. House of Reps.
Actually,
both of them are House of Reps.
We had
they won elections or they defected?
No. They won election.
In 2019, two in Bauchi State won election. One defected to another party, APC.
After winning on their platform.
After winning and staying for 3 years. Yeah. Then now there was at the by-election in Plateau State, most recently. We won another election.
Congratulations. That is the reason why you are still surviving. Otherwise, you would have been, the party would have gone along with the others.
Because people voting in that party.
No, what I mean by that, your legal advisor is here. Because under the fourth alteration to the Constitution, if you don't have a councillorship seat, you don't have a chairmanship seat, you are not represented in the House of State House of Assembly, governorship, House of Reps, or Senate, the party gets legally vanquished. So that's why my colleague also asked earlier. I said, look, what is your footing now to be, if you may, a guarantee to say you might be able then to accumulate votes beginning on the 25th of this month. And happily, Mr. Kola Abiola has, of course, indicated your representation in terms of candidacy. Every state of the Federation, you see, you are represented. 719 candidates, 22 governors, 44 senatorial.
Right.
Yeah. How massive is your organization in trying to ensure that your candidates in these various parts of the country get on top?
Well,
the question goes to you, the National Legal Advisor.
Yeah. Okay, come again.
I said, how massive is your organization to ensure that these candidates you have in different parts of the country, 719 of them, happily you already have 2 members in the House of Reps. So how massive is your organization to ensure that you are able to mobilize the electorate to be in support of your candidates? 22 of them are running for governors, 44 senatorial out of 109, which is a good number. And every other state, of course, you have people running for the House of Assembly or otherwise. So how massive is your organization?
What we do, sir, is, sorry, madam, what we do is we run a PRP campaign. We don't run a Kola Zego campaign. We run a PRP campaign. There's no call for followership in PRP. It's not like an Atiku campaign for PDP. No, it's a PRP campaign. And we have that goodwill rub off on each candidate. Like I said earlier on, we go to a state, we campaign with the candidates, we go senatorial by senatorial district campaigning with them as one unit. So that gives them a sense of a bigger family. And everything we've done, both on the public relations side, but both on the campaign side, has been one unit. So that's our strategy here. So that helps propel a lot of our candidates, especially in our own situation where it's so grassroots. Our candidates probably don't have the kind of reach and funding the other parties will have. So when we go as a party, it gives them a more robust presence. And that's one of the key strategies we have adopted.
Okay, you can see coming.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, he has said this all of, after all. But I'll add a bit that the robust nature of the party is not what we're talking about here. Just like they said before, that this is a party that everyone is committed and loyal and ready to sponsor themselves. It is a party, let me give an example of the last convention we had on the 2nd April. All over the country, every single person that attended that convention sponsored themselves, both transports, hotel and feeding. And it is like that even in this campaign. The party is doing the little they can, and then the candidates and the members are also contributing in their own way to the best of their ability.
Okay, fine and good. Let's go to the issue of manifesto now. We talk about manifesto in this country. One of the running presidential candidates did indicate that there's virtually no much difference, in all the manifestos of all the political parties. Because, well, everybody would say, I will provide energy. I will provide the water. Like we know, scarcity of fuel when I come to power. Education will be free. Some will say education will, and on and on and on and on. So, what is the difference between your manifesto and what we know today as manifesto? And you could also be specific in terms of explaining to Nigerians this manifesto. And take up agriculture, for instance. What do you intend to do?
I'll have Haro take that because he's the party expert. Okay. But I know it by head for sure. But
well, as
we have copies of our manifesto here. So our manifesto hasn't changed in the last 44 years. It hasn't changed. We've modified it and updated it to bring it up to speed with modern times, but also with the thought processes of Haro and myself.
Okay, what's intrinsically different? Agriculture is the mainstay of, especially the north, and of any country in that matter, if you want to really progress. So agriculture is a topic every political party is going to talk. What are we looking at in agriculture? We're looking at stuff, things like bringing out the commodity boards, marketing boards, because and we also we need to bring in people who form cooperatives. We need cooperative, bring about cooperative, what do you call it? So that people in the agri sector, because we have piecemeal units of smallholder farmers. We need to help them grow and aggregate them in one point so that they achieve more. It's not just in agri sector. Even when you say you want to start small scale industry, you need to bring. We have different. Let's say for carpenters, we have different carpenters. You need to be able to bring them under certain grouping so that they have access to more funding, they have access to credit, production, their level of production increase, and stuff like that. But what I think, what we really bring differently, what we bring differently into this whole thing is what we call the cost of living adjustments, which is what we want to use, and it's going to be based on family units. It's going to be means tested. So we need, we have fuel subsidies, we have cash transfer, what do you call it, scheme where 5,000 is given out. Then we have feeding program for children in schools and other social. social intervention schemes that have been brought in by different governments. But what we're looking at here and saying, okay, subsidy, well, you want to subsidize fuel, for instance, but who are the beneficiaries of the subsidy? Is it truly the common man? I don't think so. So what we say when we say cost of living adjustment, we're talking about for every Nigerian citizen or family household, there should be a basic amount of money, that income that they should have that helps them in living. Now, what's that? How do we find that? How do we adjust that? How do we need to means test these families and to see what is the living wage of this family and see how it's going to be, it could be adjusted. Now, that is what we bring into play. That will now replace issues of subsidies, because that will be what will replace. So we could go into discussing that in deeper, but we can't do it here. Basically,
if I can just add quickly to what he said. We have always been a defender of women and PWDs. That's one unique thing about our constitution. Secondly, we have been consistently, over the last 44 years, been an advocate for true federalism. We don't play semantics with it. We believe that it should be implemented. And one thing we will do in our states and as a government is to begin to implement those things as confined in the present constitution we have, or restricted to the things like local government autonomy. It's always been something on our books from day one, even from NEPU days, not talk about PRP days. We will implement that to the letter. We would trickle down governance to the local government and the ward level. But also, one big factor we have, if you go to the Constitution, 1999 Constitution, 2324, it speaks really to our manifesto. It's all about service to country, loyalty to country, helping your fellow Nigerian, and be a stakeholder. We hope really to get everybody with our constitution more involved in governance, the inclusiveness. And we want to put back the patriotism back into Nigerians. So every policy we put up is not just to create jobs, but to make you a stakeholder in Nigeria.
Well, let me ask you this. That's a straightforward question.
Yes,
what would you do about power? Power has been part of the bane of this consistent development.
I was just, only last night, speaking to a very smart lady about what do we define as poverty in Nigeria. Now, for us, it's not just the income you get, but it includes the standard of living, your health indices. Do you have sanitation? Do you have drinking water? Do you have water system, toilets? The kind of level of education you have, and so on and so forth. All these things cannot be achieved without security, without power. And for us, it's a national responsibility. When in our manifesto, we speak to the fact that government must be in control of its commanding heights. That's what we talk about. We have a responsibility to making sure that the minimum standard, as I said earlier, is attained by Nigerians. We set that standard and we make sure they're delivered. So with power, the national grid will never be prioritized because we see it as a national security issue. But what we will do around that is to build mini grids, depending on what natural resource you have in those regional areas. If it's wind, if it's hydro you have, we would capitalize on that. If it's gas you have, we'll capitalize on that. If it's plenty of sunshine, we will do solar. So we'll have a mixed grid to provide in power. But you see, the biggest headache we have is not so much the generation, but it's the delivery. The market-facing part of it, the distribution, is where most of the problems are. How do we unclog that bottleneck to be sure that what is even generated and transmitted gets down to the consumer? So we will unclog that first. Yes, we have to have the power to deliver, but you need to unclog that bit of it, and that is where we will start first. We'll have to upgrade our transmission lines. We'll have to provide a mixed bag of solar. For example, in your villages, I don't see why we can't use solar for street lighting and public areas. it's going to be a mixed bag, but generally it's going to be able, the idea there is to bring down the cost of your setup cost and your cost of to business. So we have to have a system that still looks at subsidizing to making sure that we get it to a standard, a living standard that we define, and according to our constitution, as a minimum for all Nigerians, and that has the value.
So, in addition to that, I think it's pertinent to also remind us all that the manifesto of PRP is also embedded in their constitution. They did not move away from what they have as principle and ideology. So it's different in the sense that maybe other political parties or their candidates will be talking about, I will do, I will do, I will do. But in PRP, it is our constitutional duty that we must perform. The PRP itself will hold the candidate or the governor or the president responsible because it's a constitutional duty. And it is a constitutional right for the citizens. Do you understand? So if other parties are saying, I will do, because it is not in their constitution, they are at liberty either to do or not to do. You know, the doctrine of promise. So this one is a constitutional right that anyone in Nigeria can hold PRP responsible.
Now, did the constitution provide for women participation in
Of
PRP?
course, of course.
At what level are they doing that now?
Of course. Okay. Let me just say, and you say the result to yourself, in all the political party, is there anyone that has a female as a legal advisor? The answer is no. It is only PRP that has a female as a legal advisor.
But there are other positions that also women have.
Yes, PRP have woman leader, PRP have deputy woman leader, PRP have vice chairman, North Central as a woman, PRP has FCT chairman as a woman. I can go on and on.
Okay, all right. There are many issues on the table now.
Yes, please.
With regard to your manifesto and what you intend to do as a political party. And that's a very significant point that the National Legal Advisor of the party has raised, to say that there's an organic linkage between your candidature and the constitution of the party, and therefore the manifesto that you are projecting. Not necessarily to say that Kola, I will do this, Harrow, I will do this, and so on and so forth. That's a fine point. But back to agriculture. Again, you can't run away from your father's shadows or your father's legacy. Your dad had Abiola Farms.
Yes, I was the MD.
Yes, he had Abiola Farms. And it wasn't the back-breaking kind of agricultural practice that we continue to have today. And many would argue that it is that kind of farming practice that would generate the volume that we will require to be able to catalyze industrialization on the one hand, and then the utility of commodity boards. How is the PRP addressing this?
Yeah, if I go by Abiola Farms, I was the CEO and MD of Abiola Farms back then. You see, I akin it to a mall setup. In a mall, you have the anchor client, and then you have all the small stores. The anchor client attracts the customers to the mall, and then the smaller shops feed off that. And that's the same principle we adopted. Yes, you have to have your mechanized farms. We did it so well in Taraba that I even have a local government named after me, Agonkola, in Taraba. So what we did there was, we were the anchor farmer. We cultivated almost 2,000 hectares of maize, sorghum, and soybeans. And then what we did was introduced sunflower seeds. And those sunflower seeds could be planted off-season. So we mop up all their grains because we had the storage facilities. We mopped up, and then we gave them another additional income in the sunflowers. The sunflowers, they didn't know what to do with it, basically, but it's an oil seed. So you have to sell it back to me. So that gave them additional income. Now, where am I going with all this? You need to have an anchor, you need to have a processor, and from the processors, you need to use that to generate the activity in the farms. But besides that, that's just private. We have to go back to all these our inland basin,
river basin
authorities. We need to reactivate them because they were meant to serve not just seasonal but continuous farming, irrigated farming. We need to look at setting up, like we in our constitution, industries in particular areas for specific crops. In southern Kaduna, for example, ginger is the best ginger probably in the world is grown in southern Kaduna. We need to do that and provide value added, not just for the client, but for the farmers as a whole. That's where the cooperatives come in. We need to also, in many cases, develop skills. So what you have is you have a lot of mechanics, you have a lot of all these things. We need to vulcanizers, thank you, artisans. We need to bring them up to speed. Early in the southwest, you have all these things where you take your son, give it to a mechanic, he passes out, he gets his freedom, but he has nothing to show for that freedom. It's just that you have a small party for him, and he goes to set up his own thing. We want to bring those people back in. Make sure they have the numeracy and literacy. Make sure that they have they go into a database showing that they've learned these things. So when you need them, you can go to that database and employ them because that's you have value added for them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kola Abiola. Good point. I still want to stay with agriculture.
Yes, sir.
And to use your experience and the benefit of the transactions you had running Abiola Farms, which was quite popular, to say, for instance, why would it be that the war in Ukraine suddenly becomes a destabilizing factor in grain supplies, and here in Nigeria we appear not to be filling the gap? So what is it that the PRP is doing? Because, well, you can't turn the peasant farmers or the smallholder farmers, that's a better expression, turn them around overnight. What is the PRP's agenda in this respect? Wheat comes and goes, you know, we have one program and the other, it doesn't stay well. Maize go to poultry farmers. Poultry farmers are complaining about the inputs for livestock feed. So what is the PRP's agenda in this regard, using your experience?
The biggest problem we have, sir, is that we don't use the inputs we have domestically. We're used to importing inputs. That's the biggest problem, sir. When you have it locally. I remember back then, when I did my NYSC in Zaria, I was kind of bored, so I figured, okay, I was driving past, saw a cold store, abandoned cold store. I walked in there, I spoke to the owner, fixed that cold store. My late mother was probably one of the largest frozen fish importers in Nigeria. So I struck a deal with her. Well, I was equally the manager of the company. I struck a deal to bring in 40-foot trailers of frozen fish to Zaria. And guess what? The whole Zaria Funtua area will feed Nigeria in veggies, undoubtedly. Tomatoes, name it, fruits, everything is there. And they're all irrigated. So I will go to the Funtua axis and buy up everything, put it on refrigerated trucks, back to Lagos. That is what we should be doing. The infrastructure for distribution is not there. The ultimate storage is processing. Ultimate storage is processing. We don't do that. We also, even for our commodities that we export, we don't have standard boards. So anybody will just pack anything, put it in a container and ship. You must have a standard. You must be able to say, okay, this is grade A, and grade A is grade A, grade B is B, and so on and so forth. And then you use that as a means to making sure, not just for export, but making sure the exports go through the system and we get the benefit results of the effects. These are things that I've done personally myself. Even in Edo State, we set up, I drive past and I see market day on my way out. I come back and I see the heaps of all the yams and everything. And I'm like, I thought they had market day. They said, no, they're waiting for, the guys that paid for it, they're coming to pack them to go to Asaba or go to Benin. And I'm like, why should that be the case? You guys come together as a group. We'll give you 2 trucks. One goes to Asaba, one goes to Benin. They get to Benin and Asaba and see the difference in the price they were bought in the village as opposed to what they're selling it there. And they were like, I said, yeah, they're ripping you off. They're ripping you off. So these are the things. We have the grains, we have the input, we have everything, but the lack of infrastructure. And guess what? The cost of transportation, then, if you take the yams or the product, is at least 6 to 7 times the cost of the produce on board because of the lack of transportation. And I'm lucky I have refrigeration in those trucks. If I didn't have the refrigeration, what it takes to ply those roads and everything, I end up with what? A high percentage of spillage. So it's just, it's not rocket science. It's just putting it together and making it work. And we are coming from an entrepreneurial background. Both of us. We have done these things. We have practiced it. We have created jobs from that. So we know what we're talking about.
To add to what he's saying, sir, is I think a lot of times, as you rightly said, we need to look at agriculture not as a pastime, but as a business.
Yeah.
But also when you look at anything as a business, you need to have passion for it.
Yeah.
And so that's a foundation on what you build from. But when we talk about smallholder farmers, it is from there you're talking about next 6 months. You can't bring people who don't have a passion for agriculture into agriculture at that scale because it's intensive physically and financially and otherwise. Now, if you're talking, we need to develop the smallholder farmers, and one of the biggest things you give to them is ownership of their land.
Yeah.
Now it is based on that they will be able to aggregate properly and increase scale. And then government, as government, we come in with mechanization implements to help support the system. But those things will only work when they form cooperatives.
Okay.
And because even for training purposes, it's easier to train in cooperatives. For extension services.
What gaps do you find now in terms of governance in relation to agriculture? Is that
very simple thing, sir? Take fertilizer for one. Fertilizer is supposed to be a subsidized item to the farmer. Your politicians will get those fertilizers.
Including you or minus you?
I'm not a politician, sir. I'm just in politics. I'm not a politician. We're both not politicians, we're just in politics.
Yeah.
They will go get those fertilizers, keep them in warehouses, and use them as political handouts. By the time they start doing that, the season is over.
Added to that.
All right, let's not continue with this agri thing. You know why I say that? You know, we've seen governments come and go. When you talk about agriculture as business, I had it first from Akumi Adesina, you know, as the Minister of Agriculture, whom I covered for about 3 years. Right, and he did everything he could. He introduced the cassava bread and what have you. He got to a point with the FAO. As a matter of fact, he wanted the EU, you know, to approve a Nigerian cow, you know, Nigerian cow meat and so on and so forth. He did a lot in the agri sector. But when it comes to implementation, down the line, it has to be cascaded so that people will begin to feel the impact of it. Yeah. So your analysis is quite okay. No doubt about that. But implementation is where the matter lies. One other key sector that has, you know, experienced a setback over the years is the education sector. Of course, you don't have to talk about ASU strike. That is just one aspect of it. We talk about infrastructure and education sector. Talk about the quality of graduates that we churn out on a yearly basis. We churn out mostly unemployable graduates and what have you. We have lost touch of government training centers, that is the technical training schools in this country. We're also at the verge of losing history and what have you. So what is PRP going to do differently to ensure that the education sector is revived? Let's have a renaissance, you know, of what it used to be in those days. Any of you
let me touch on it, because he has touched on it a little bit, but he didn't, probably the emphasis was not there, and he was talking about it based on agriculture. Yeah. Now, when we talk about agriculture, education, we need to talk about, most of the time they say out of school children. Out of school children. True. But out-of-school children were caused by out-of-school adults. Adults who did not go to the same, that lost out in going to school, that lost out in any form of formal education. And government, through a scheme with, I think, the World Bank, is brought in what they call accelerated basic education program, which is meant to be for more of out-of-school adult education, whereby it's accelerated. The system is accelerated based on the fact that you have reached a certain stage. You don't have to bring the person to the lowest of lows to start teaching him anymore. So that's when we talk about basic literacy and numeracy. When you get to use that program in tandem with this basic, and this we are proposing should be taught in local languages. We're starting with the major languages, and you cascade down to the smaller languages, but we keep it to the major language, because mostly everybody in the north speaks Hausa, mostly everybody in the southwest speaks Yoruba, mostly everybody in the north, southeast speaks Igbo. So we pick on that as a first instance. So you give basic numeracy and literacy. When the person, and people move, it's accelerated, so you move at a pace that you can accommodate. So we could be in a whole class together. I'm moving faster than she, and she's moving faster. But, you know, now when you get from that, then when you get the basic numeracy and literacy, then you turn the person moving into vocational skill sets, vocational skill training. From vocational skill, after you've trained that person, then you talk about working with something like NDE from a database, where you put this. That's where you talk about certification, and then it's put in a database whereby this person is registered as he has been trained in this and this. And then you go back to helping them see the need to form cooperatives, because that's how they get into the financial inclusiveness, because they get credit, they get support, they get training as a group better than individually. And that's where we need, when you get those out of school, untrained, unlearned adults, then they see the benefit to kids. And then that is when you get to start changing this circle. But without doing that, sir, we have children, out of 100 children, or 1 million, I bet you, only 50% know even why they are in school.
And that brings me to something that I need to put in real quick because of time. We're looking at a 6-5-2 system. 6 primary school, 5 secondary school, 2 to bring back A-levels. Now, if at secondary school you choose not to go to A-levels, you go to vocational schools. Now, the vocational school is not a means to an end on its own. If you do 2 years there and you think you need to further education, you move up to a proper university, and the credits you have at that point count towards your graduation. So you'll be a slow starter and then get involved and get creative with your hands. I want to take it to the next level. You move to university, those credits will count towards it, and your degree is at par. That's one thing. For the guys that go to A-levels, obviously they want to go to college. But also, we have this thing about, we spoke about this thing about WAEC as opposed to JAM. I think it's a redundancy at the end of the day. Something that we would look into and make sure that something is done about. We also
come back again to WAEC and the JAM.
What he's trying to say is that you're right. You get a child to write WAEC, then forget about NECO, and then he writes his JAM. Then he goes to post UME and all that. In other realms, you write your WAEC. It's your points
that take you to
your points from your WAEC result
that determines whether you go to uni or you want to go to vocational or you want to go to that.
Those are converted to points, the same as the points that take you to that you get in JAM. So why would you take someone who makes an average 30,000 naira per month and tell him his child has to write WAEC, NECO, then he writes JAM and
so is the PRP proposing to scrap JAM?
It's an option we're looking at. We're looking at whether it is. They're not scrapping JAM. No.
We're just finding a way to consolidate that whole process.
Examination process of JAM. JAM can also remain as the body that for the university admissions
but not necessarily writing exam.
That's right. I'm with you there. That cost of that.
I'm with you there. JAM under its enabling act does not admit students. It is the business of the Senate of each university
to set this point
to admit students. JAM only sets the exams, and the exams are intended to advise the institutions on what to do.
Thank you very
JAM
much.
Doesn't admit.
Thank you very much, sir. Then what is post-UME?
Post-UME is to further sift.
What are we talking about?
No, hang on a second. Hang on.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, no, what you are talking about, post-UME is conducted by the respective institutions. Some institutions don't bother.
We're talking about multiple taxation. You are not bringing multiple. What are we talking about?
I'm only just explaining. I'm only explaining the legal order. That is why I asked you the question earlier. Will you scrap JAM?
We need to form a way to make sure this thing is consolidated, sir.
Let me go to the lady.
Sir, before I lose this, real quick. Also, we're looking at the teacher training schemes again. Now, unfortunately, many of the teacher training schools, colleges, the barriers are set so low, so you get the worst of our students that never really are interested in teaching to go to these schools. We will treat teacher training like your NYSC. What we will do is to set high standards. You will go while you're training in the, you will get an allowee or whatever you call it, stipends. While you're there, we're going to look at it as that because these are the things that make the difference. Then our traditional institutions, our UNILAGs, if Ahmadu Bello and so on, we want to encourage more postgraduate schools because we want to make them schools for research, and research brings value. We want them to become research institutions, attract as much research donations as possible. And then another thing, the biggest problem we have in our unis is that we begin to run them like civil service establishments. No, they're not. They're not under the Civil Service Act. We should take them out and run, even our choices and appointments of vice chancellors and all that. It's become a civil service thing. Exactly. We should take them out of that and do what they have always done, the educational institutions. So these are things that we need to, we will definitely stop.
Yes, PRP, I know that many Nigerians are going to identify with you in certain points that you have made. Yes. For instance, the issue of JAM and no JAM. The act establishing JAM and what have you. If you admit any student in your institution without JAM knowing, that student will not pass out of the school after 5 years. Somebody said that they got documentation, so let's not go there. But the PRP says you're going to change that. Many Nigerians will be happy about that, and then we bring it.
No, but how do you question it? How do you change it? That's what is the alteration? Because JAM. Hang on a second. JAM is not an administrative creature.
No, it's
JAM is created by statute.
Right.
By law. The act, it was a decree when it was passed in 1977. And I'm asking the question now, how do you do that?
So
I'm sorry. Yes, I will also, against the background of what he's saying, yes, you want to alter the focus of institutions and so on and so forth. Don't forget, the federal institutions you mentioned, that's to say universities, and state universities that probably will also be part of the consideration, these are creatures of law. So, are you going to take out the law?
So we understand. We're not going to create it by fiat. Wait, please. We're not going to do it by fiat. What we're talking about, sir, is what we're talking about. We talked about rule of law, due processes. But essentially, the laws are made for the human beings, the ordinary people.
Yes.
They are not made for some people up there. We're talking about somebody who earns 30,000 naira, has to take his child to university, and he has to pay that when the final year of his child. From where, sir?
So if you step back,
and you are saying the people won't support it?
So let us step back one.
I didn't say that.
No,
my point is, sorry,
I think I get where he's going.
My point, hang on a second, so that if you're not clear about my question, you have said, you listed your complaints about and against WAEC and JAMB and UTMA and post-UTMA. And I'm asking you, how do you hope to realize it?
Let me finish.
No. She's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. No. Haro, allow her, please. She's a lawyer. Because this issue has come to issue of law and no law. We made a law. You can change the law. You can bend it. You can break it. You can use another law to dismantle another law. Is that not the case?
Exactly, sir. And what we are saying here is not that they are not a statutory provisions. An act established them. That's not what we're saying. But we all know in Nigeria that even the Nigerian constitution, that is the grand norm of all the laws, can be altered, can be changed. Take, for instance, Electoral Act of 2022 was not there 2015, right? So it has been changed by due process. So PRP seeing all these things as things that needed to be changed because of the talakawas, that the thing is affecting negatively. We are saying with due process of changing laws in Nigeria, altering it in Nigeria, we will give it a try.
Now, my question to you, original question to you, is girl child education in Nigeria. Of course, we know that has been a very, very huge, problem, especially in the northern part of the country, where PRP, should I say, originated. So, how do you intend to tackle it?
Well, PRP as a whole, you've asked this question, but indirectly, regard women. And when you talk about women, you don't exclude girl child. So PRP in their education plan, PRP in their women respect and plan for women also include girls' child education. And then coming to the immediate point we just finished, when he talked about graduating without a job. If you look at the plans from beginning to the end about the education, when that is in place with the technical training, all form of formal education, one need not to come out, graduate, and be looking, carrying file up and down. By the time you graduate, you have already in your mind know where you are going and what you will do. So what is our biggest problem about joblessness is not about employing someone into an office. It's about mentality. It's about the system. So when the system is in order, both girl child and male child will be in place.
We give you the option, sir. We give you the option to go to college or go to vocational.
Okay.
To add value. You have that option from day one. But if along the lines, if you decide to change and go further, we also give you an option to go to college from there. But you're more mature, and I think it's all about having the options at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, okay. So we are having to take a short break now.
Okay.
Good ideas and illumination of your ideas that you have brought about. One point to bear in mind, though, is
that one of the political parties contesting election on the 25th of February. And that's the People's Redemption Party, PRP, one of the oldest party in Nigeria today. And its presidential candidate is Mr. Kolawole Abiola. He also here in the studio with his vice presidential candidate, Haruna Zego, and of course, National Legal Advisor, Juliet Oba. Well, we're deliberating on their plans, the manifesto, and what they intend to do for the country if they clinch power come 25th of February. Now, let's come to the issue of oil.
Yes, please.
Yes, it's another major sector that this country, some persons would say, look, is it a curse that we have this resource or something? And of course, the stories around oil. This is a gift of nature that we now extract, send abroad for refining and return to sell in Nigeria. And of course, that is not going down well with many Nigerians. And I would like to know how you intend to address it. Of course, you know that our 4 refineries are not working at full capacity. And of course, presently you have fuel scarcity. I wonder how you are getting your own fuel and all that. So how do you intend to tackle this perennial problem?
So it's a case of the guy that has the cap doesn't have the head. The guy that has the head doesn't have the cap. In Nigeria, we have the cap and the head, but we don't know how to wear it. The oil and the gas is a given gift from God to Nigeria. But unfortunately, we have run into a system that takes advantage, not just for the Nigerian, but the very few. And that's partially why we have the problem today. I've told the story about how we got into oil subsidy. Some time ago, not too long ago, we were producing enough products for our need, both chemical and gasoline. We exported products, and we had excess capacity. Using the same 4 refineries you spoke about. But somewhere along the line, some smart person decided that we should do a turnaround maintenance. Now, when I say smart, the smart thing would have been to do the maintenance one after the other. But that person decided they wanted to shut down all the 4 refineries and do the maintenance simultaneously. So they figured that in that area we needed so much usage, and they decided, okay, we will give a 6-month subsidy, importation of products, while the refinery was being turned around, maintenance. And guess what? Those refineries haven't worked since that time. And we've been importing because it became a big business. The subsidy involved became a big business. And we've been in that till today. Now, for the last 1983, 84 that I've been back in Nigeria, I traveled extensively in this country. Once you leave your state capitals and you start traveling, you only buy gas using a calculator. You never buy at pump price. Means you step out of Abuja or Lagos or Benin or anywhere, you go to a gas station, they will say, okay, this is the price, if you want to buy. They bring out the calculator. So we've been paying unsubsidized for so long. And the people out there have been paying. So the one thing we're going to do first is to stop that subsidy. Secondly, every barrel must be accounted for. Every barrel must be accounted for. We have gone from 2 million barrels a day to less than 1 million barrels a day. That will never make it work economically for Nigeria. In our own figures, we need to be doing between 3.2 to 3.5 million barrels a day to make it work economically in this country. We're all about growth. We will not build growth on less than 1 million barrels. A majority of that is even stolen barrels. We need to, all these refineries have to be privatized. When I say privatized, I don't mean sell it lock, stock, and barrel. You can have somebody come take that over, and the federal government begins to own, maybe 40% of it, and let them come and install and run it. That's what I'm talking about. Because it's owned by the people. And that 40% over time can go to the market, and every common Nigerian can buy a stake in these things. This is what we need to do. We need to utilize our gas, value add our gas. We need to cut consumption. We need to put, what we have is what we will use to grow. We need to just make sure we drill, explore our natural resources using the best practices. A lot of HSC, a lot of less pollution, environmental considerations in mind. That's what we should be doing. A lot of our public transport, when I say reduce demand, a lot of our public transport should be using gas. All our Abuja transit, this transit should be on LPG as opposed to diesel. So we free up some more for other uses. Even our cooking, we must encourage more gas. It's very crazy. You subsidize petrol, but you don't subsidize diesel that all industry and transportation and food uses.
Or DPK.
You don't transfer it, you don't subsidize kerosene, which we all used to cook. Isn't that skewed? I mean, who uses the most of the diesel? Business and the public transport and food transportation. Who uses most of the DPK? The common man to cook. But you subsidize the PMS because you and I drive it in the cities. So it has to be people oriented first and foremost in everything we do. And we forget that. And I can go on and on and on what we do. Now, we have to use a lot of our gas also for power usage, because it's the cleanest and cheapest way to get it. We have to use it for industry as opposed to diesel generators. So whatever it takes to get to that level, the system would price it commercially, and then as a government we can decide, okay, yes, let's take a bite of it for them to make it accessible, just to get it going. Yes.
Mr. Abiola, yes, let me pause you very quickly, because we're on the home stretch for this conversation. I want to come back to your running mate, Haruna Zego. Earlier, you talked about the odyssey of the PRP, that at some point, during the Second Republic, for instance, the PRP was in charge of Kano and Kaduna until 1981 when Barabe Musa was impeached. And then you talked about also the influence of money politics. In the current season, we have seen stories around see and buy. I'm sure you know what that means.
I don't know, but I can guess.
Yes, well, you make a guess. See and buy. See and buy. They say you vote for a particular party and then you get paid right there on the spot.
Yeah.
And many persons argue that those who engage in see and buy are taking advantage of the poverty of a good number of voters. And a good number of these persons who are poor ordinarily will be like the Talakawas. What, in your opinion, and in the course of your campaigns, can be a game changer in this regard? Because you have your agenda, you have your manifesto, you have your constitution of PRP, and there's a linkage amongst all of these items I have raised. If your party would be of ultimate benefit to the poor, how can the poor resist those who would then be flaunting money, especially the new Naira that everyone is crying about now?
Thank you very much. The new Naira is more valuable than, I think I tell people the new Naira is more valuable than the dollar in the hands of anybody now, because it's more sought after. Yeah, as you said, poverty has been weaponized, and what do we do about it, and how can we? I'll only give you a statement of fact, and then we can use that to judge what to. Because when we talk about these Talakas and being able to buy them, I think we do a lot of disservice to them when we have it on record that. In 2003, our president today came out with 12 million votes and consistently moved with 12 million votes up till 2015 when he became president, except that law in when he formed the CPC, and he got 6 million because the party was formed in a very short time. Now, we have to now go back and see what's the demographic? Who are those people that have always supported the president? Are they the bourgeois? Are they the elites? No, they've never been. Are they the people who are downtrodden? Yes. In 2015, they even contributed money to his campaign.
$8 billion.
Now, those people are looking for someone who will stand for their rights, a man of integrity, a man that will emancipate them from what they're going through. And they saw in that person, in 1978, a Malam Aminu Kano. And in after 1985, they saw in that person a Buhari. And it was what they saw, not because Buhari is an astute politician, not because he shares money, but they saw a person that they felt they could identify with. And I dare say that today we have a person in the PRP that stands for a person that stands for the common man, has stood for the common man, comes from and came from an average, very average background. He did not grow in wealth. No. His parents got to the UK because they were smart and were given a scholarship. Everybody at that time was given a scholarship if you did well. And the parents made something out of themselves while he was already born. And so he is not a bourgeois or an elite. He has walked he has walked this country. Okay. And that is why he tells you, I've been to nearly every state in this country.
All right. If you say that your presidential candidate has an average background, it's okay. I'm not going to. I'm not going to put that to test. Okay, but let's just.
You can.
But I want us to talk about cost of governance in this country. As a matter of fact, when I travel to my home state, and I see the blaring of siren and all manner of SUVs, I mean, they can pay the pensions that are unpaid in my Enugu state and other states of this federation, and of course at the national level too. We also know that cost of governance is part of our problem. Here on this platform, McKinsey and I we were on set some years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago. We're talking about the senators, demanding they must drive certain SUVs, and if not that, they're not going to drive it as if they never owned cars before, and if you see a councillor, you could be going with about 5, motorcade, and what have you. So how do you intend to tackle cost of governance?
I think we'll start by. You see, the beauty of PRP is that we've never been in the center. We never had federal government. We're going to lead by example, Haro and myself. But more importantly, we're going to demystify that office. We're taking governance down to the people. We've led our own lifestyles. I don't think we're about to change that much. So we lead by example. And I think many a times, that's the crux of the problem in Nigeria. You become president, you're cocooned in the villa, everybody is dancing around you, you never venture out and go and meet the people themselves. So if I lead by example, and that passes down, I think we will begin to put ourselves in check, number one. Number two, a lot of it is corruption. It's not the cost of governance. The overheads is not the biggest headache we have. It's the corruption in governance. That is where the problem is. The government, as government, there's a minimum standard you must have. I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that. But it's the corruption. If they do all this you're talking about and still don't go into the coffers, it's a different thing entirely. A lot of it is a lot of corruption. And that's what is killing the system. It's stifling everybody. When you have ministries that have to go to their fellow ministry to pay to get their subventions and so on. So that's what we're talking about. Okay. It's the corruption that is killing the system. The cost is high, yes, I admit. It can be reduced, but no amount of reduction still solve the problem. It's the corruption in the system that is choking Nigeria. For every little thing, from driving through the villa to seeing the president, everything. So we will move away and take it to the level that says that a week every quarter we move governance regionally. Let's go and see these things ourselves at that level.
Okay. Mr. Abiola, thank you very much. Earlier, when you were responding to issues in the power sector, yes, sir, I didn't quite get your explanation. Did you say that government would be in control of the commanding heights?
Yes.
Well, generally of the economy, or generally or specific to the power sector? Please explain. We know what the value chain is in the power sector now. Right. Gencos, yes, transmission, and discos. Discos privatize, a lot of problems with them. What is it that you're going to do differently? Are you going to renationalize or what? We don't have enough time, so your answer in brief, please.
Okay, sir. What I meant by control of the commanding heights, government should be government. Government should not be business. And really, business has no business in government. So there must be separate lines. So we're in charge. What we should do as for our responsibilities as government, we will do to the letter. We will hold the law to everybody's head. That's what we will do. But also, more importantly, when we say hold the commanding heights, doesn't mean we're an authoritarian or communist type thing. No, we will create, it's going to be a market-driven system that creates liquidity, first and foremost, and let government do what it should do as government. And that's what I meant by that. When I said about NEPA, look, NEPA has gone from one NEPA to how many? Has anything ever improved at all? The same thing when NPC has gone from one NPC to, it hasn't improved. What you have just built is additional wastages and corruption. That's what you're building. So what we are looking at, when I say government should hold commanding heights, is to have a strong regulatory environment. That's all our business as government should be. Strong regulatory environment. We don't need all these multiplications. We need a strong regulatory environment to keep things right and hold everybody accountable.
All right,
and that's what we're all about.
All right, sir.
Yes, sir.
People's Redemption Party presidential candidate,
yes, sir.
Latifu Kolawole Abiola, I would like to thank you for sharing your time and thoughts with us with respect to your campaign and party and what have you.
Can I say something real quick, sir?
Okay, briefly, yes, we are second.
Sir, 2023 is 30 years of June 12th. Okay. 24 of that 20 years has been mismanaged by one party, PDP, APC. For the first time in political history in Nigeria, we have the opportunity to change this. Sorry, what I mean by that is that we don't have an incumbent president. 70% of our governors are not coming back. They've done it 2 times. 79% of the House is not coming back because they didn't have a ticket. Let us go out and vote
for a new era.
Make a
for a new era. Okay, thank you indeed. Then the vice presidential candidate of the PRP, Haruna Zego, we thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And of course, Barrister Julia Toba, National Legal Advisor, PRP. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.